Day one of NFL free agency has come and gone, and the con artist was definitely busy. Today on the show, I'm going to be breaking down my grades for every single move the Pittsburgh Steelers made to make their roster better heading into the 2026 season on day one of NFL free agency. But before we get into the content today, we'll get into my grades, and then we'll finish up today with some day two targets here. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button, because this is why you subscribe to the channel, guys. Extensive NFL free agency coverage. We were live on the channel for 7 hours yesterday, breaking down everything surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. We will be going live again today. The plan is to go live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if we have breaking news before that, we will expedite that process. But just so you guys know, we are planning to go back live here for at least 3 to 4 hours here, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And of course, if the con artist strikes again, we'll have breaking news coverage for you guys right here on Steelers Talk. Speaking of a signings, one of the later in the day yesterday that we didn't get to, Tom Pelissero reported that the Steelers are re-signing defensive lineman Esezi Otomewo. Otto is back on a one-year deal per his agents, and I think that this is a good signing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Otto, as a defensive lineman last year, was pretty darn good for the Pittsburgh Steelers in a rotational role. He was somebody that during camp really had to earn his spot on the roster. He did that, and I'm going to give this a B+ to bring him back. I'm guessing it's at a very, very small amount, like close to that minimum, and he proved last year that he's a pretty darn good rotational defensive lineman in this 3-4 scheme that we run here in Pittsburgh, and Patrick Graham is retaining here in Pittsburgh this year. So I think that was a pretty darn good signing. I'm going to give that one a B+ to retain a good player, a good rotational player on a small contract. Then we'll get to Asante Samuel Jr. here, which was the first move that Omar Khan made of the day. I will give that one a B for now. We'll see what the Steelers kind of have in store for Asante Samuel Jr. this year, but I like the contract. 1 year, $4 million. It's a really good value. Asante Samuel Jr. Does have an injury history and some injury concerns. Apparently, he got flagged from a number of NFL teams that he visited last year, and the Steelers were one of the only teams that cleared him to play. So that definitely drove down his value. He is somebody that is a serviceable NFL starting cornerback for sure. He proved that last year, returning and playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers and playing pretty darn well after spinal fusion surgery. But the big question when it comes to Asante Samuel Jr. is, what is his role next season? Like, some people are kind of projecting that Patrick Graham could convert him into a slot corner because, of his size. He's an undersized corner, so, you would think that maybe he would make that easy transition into the slot. But the thing is, Asante has never taken more than 24 slot snaps in a season in his NFL career, and in most seasons, he's taken less than 10. So, he played exclusively pretty much on the outside for the Steelers last season. So I'm not sure if the Steelers really view him as a slot corner. I think that they might still be looking for maybe a slot corner or safety solution, depending on what they're trying to do with Jalen Ramsey. And Asante, especially at that contract, 1 year, $4 million, he could be, their backup number 3 cornerback in case, Jamel Dean or Joey Porter Jr. end up getting injured. Of course, you still have Brandon Echols on the roster as well. So honestly, I'm kind of loving the depth that the Pittsburgh Steelers have at the cornerback position heading into the season. Another move that they made right before the start of the legal tampering period yesterday, they re-signed linebacker Cole Holcomb. I'm going to give that one a B- for now. We'll see how things kind of play out with the linebacker room. There's still a lot of things up in the air. Apparently, the Steelers are considering trading Patrick Queen. We'll talk about that here in a second. And my take on this signing is that Holcomb's a very solid piece. I think that he's a serviceable, number 3 linebacker in a rotation. He's a good special teamer as well. But $5 million for your current linebacker 4, I don't know if I love that deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because with the way that the linebacker room is currently constructed, Cole Holcomb's not going to see the field a whole lot. And to pay a guy $2.5 million for that limited of a role, I don't know if I necessarily love that. I mean, I'm happy for Cole. He's gone through a lot, and I thought he played okay for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. But I will like this move more if Pittsburgh lets go of either Patrick Queen or Malik Harrison. And it sounds like the guy that the Steelers are considering moving on from at this point is Patrick Queen. Andrew Filipponi said yesterday, "How about this? Chris Muller, my esteemed co-host, is hearing that the Cowboys have contacted the Steelers about Patrick Queen, and they're trying to trade for the Steelers linebacker. The two sides are talking per Molesey's Moles. I would love to trade Queen. And, I think that, when it comes to Queen, I think that he could play a lot better in Patrick Graham's defense than he did in Taylor Lawson and Mike Tomlin's defense. Obviously, Queen has not been worth the money that the Steelers paid him, and he does have a very large cap hit for the Pittsburgh Steelers if he is going to be retained on this roster. But like I said, I think that it is feasible that he could, play a lot better in this new defense than it was in the previous one. But I would be open to trading Patrick Queen for the right price tag. Like, they shouldn't just give him away. Don't think they should just give him away for like a 7th round pick. But like, if I could get a decent day 3 draft pick, like a round 4 or even round 5 draft pick, I would definitely consider it. Patrick Queen is somebody that I think has some potential, but like, his cap hit is so large, and you can save $13.3 million against the cap if you trade him, and then you get another chance at the dartboard here on day 3 if you can add one of those early day 3 selections, and that is something that I think the con artist should absolutely consider doing if he has the opportunity to do so. Because my philosophy on the linebacker room, guys, is that paying a lot for a linebacker is not really something that I like to do, and you do have some decent depth in this room already. You got Peyton Wilson, who's very similar stylistically to Patrick Queen. You got Malik Harrison as your thumper. You've got Cole Holcomb in there as a decent number 3 guy. Carson Bruner showed some good things, especially on special teams last year. So you could certainly afford to save that $13.3 million by trading Patrick Queen away. It's also a very good linebacker class. If you wanted to go out and grab a linebacker, you could certainly do that as well, but I'm not really a big fan of spending a lot of money in the linebacker room, guys. And, the Steelers right now, I believe, have the 2nd most expensive linebacker room in football. So, like, if the Cowboys offered me their 5th round pick, number 152, in exchange for Patrick Queen, I think that this is something that I would definitely consider if I were the Pittsburgh Steelers. This would increase your draft pick total to 13 for the season. And honestly, if the Cowboys wanted to offer me like a 2027 draft pick, I would definitely be interested in that as well. The 2027 draft is supposed to be absolutely loaded. But, there's certainly some options out there to replace Patrick Queen, not only in free agency, but also in the NFL draft. Leo Chanel is one of my favorite linebackers in football, honestly, just because, he just does everything, pretty darn well. Like, he's not special in any one category, but he does everything to an adequate level. He does his job at a really high level. But then a couple guys that played inside Patrick Graham's defense last year, Jamal Adams, who played kind of a hybrid, kind of big nickel linebacker role last year, and then a Landon Roberts, who played, of course, with the Steelers a couple years back, but played with the Raiders defense and Patrick Graham last year. I could see those guys being very affordable Patrick Queen replacements, and you can get a lot of money out of this linebacker room. And of course, if you want to, you can spend one of your 12 draft picks on a rookie in what's really an excellent linebacker class. So there's lots of options to replace Patrick Queen, and saving $13.3 million by trading him away is something that I would definitely consider if I'm the Steelers. So would you guys accept this trade? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Are you accepting a 5th round pick in exchange for Patrick Queen? Give me an A for accept or D for decline. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at GLD. While I tell you about our sponsor, let me know if you would accept or decline this trade to send Patrick Queen to Dallas. Guys, every person and every guy especially has those go-to pieces in their closet, right? Whether it's the shoes that go with everything, the one pair of jeans that fit just right, the shirt that always looks clean no matter what you pair with it. You don't overthink those pieces. You just grab them and they work every single time. But what most guys are missing from their lineup is jewelry. That's where a GLD comes in. They make the kind of pieces that become part of your routine, not just something you have to save for special occasions or just for once in a while. Just clean, quality pieces that instantly take your fit to look more fresh. Once you add a GLD chain to your rotation, you will never go back. And this isn't the cheap stuff, guys. GLD only uses real gold. Every stone is meticulously hand set, and the production process is on a completely different level. You can really see and feel the difference when it comes to these products, guys. You guys have seen me wear this pendant on Steelers Talk watch parties, and occasionally I'll wear this on our show here, guys. And I just absolutely love wearing this piece when I want to shine a little bit more, because this thing definitely draws attention here in the office, and everyone's always asking me, where did you get that necklace? That thing is awesome. And I always proudly tell them that I got it from GLD. So this is one of those pieces that you just put on once once, and then it really never comes off, guys. They've got everything, too, from chains to pendants to bracelets, even a nice selection of watches, if that's your style. Whether you keep it simple or whether you like to shine a little bit, they've got you covered. And it's not just hype, guys. They have over 2 million customers and 50,000 five-star reviews to back them up, with GLD being worn by names like Justin Bieber, Malik Neighbors, Micah Parsons, A$AP Rocky, and plenty more. But the best part is that every single piece is guaranteed for life. And if you want to look, feel, and be your best, or just want to level up your outfit, this is the missing piece that you've been sleeping on. Work hard and change the game with GLD today. For a limited time only, new customers are getting an insane deal. Use code CHAT to get 50% off at GLD.com. That's 50% off with code CHAT at GLD.com. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. And a big thank you to GLD for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. All right, now let's talk about the Michael Pittman Jr. trade and extension, and I like the move. All right, I'm going to give it a B. Now, I know a lot of people might think that might be a little bit too low, and I do like the price tag that they got him for in the trade, right? Just a 6th and 7th round pick swap to get a guy that is a legit wide receiver too, coming off a pretty decent season for the Indianapolis Colts. The thing that gets me a little bit worried, though, is the extension. With 3 years, $59 million being added to the $24 million that's already transferred over from his previous contract with the Indianapolis Colts. So that brings him to around $20 million per season on this 4-year deal now for a 28-year-old wide receiver that the Steelers are adding to the fold here. And, Pittman brings great size, 6'4", 223 pounds. Obviously, the trade details there is a late-round pick swap where you're swapping 6th and 7th round picks with the Indianapolis Colts. And then, he is under contract now with the Pittsburgh Steelers for the next 4 seasons. So, you have your wide receiver duo here under contract for the next 4 years in DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr. And then when you add probably, either a 1st or 2nd round pick in the NFL draft this year to this room, you're looking at a team that's going to have a legitimate wide receiver trio heading into the 2026 season. So absolutely, Omar Khan, did his job here. He landed a wide receiver too. But the truth is, okay, Michael Pittman has slowed down recently in recent years, all right, especially last year where, I did think that he took a step back athletically, and he never really was like the greatest athlete in the world. He used to be an absolute yak monster for the Indianapolis Colts. Last year, I think he only had like 230 yards after the catch compared to what it was back in 2024, where he had a lot more than that, like almost double that. So he's slowing down a little bit more. You guys can see that the efficiency in 2025 wasn't as good as it was in 2024 or 2023, but he did get 7 touchdowns, so he's absolutely still got those vice grips for hands. He's going to be a red zone threat for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's really, really good in terms of the chain moving stuff, 3rd down and medium, 3rd down and short as a short and intermediate level threat. He runs really good slants and digs and comebackers and stuff like that. I think he brings a lot of good stuff to the table. I think he's very complimentary to DK Metcalf, right? He's not a perfect receiver. He's not going to be a vertical threat for you. He has had some back injuries, and I think some of those back injuries have begun to maybe creep up with him, which makes me a little bit worried about this 4-year deal that we now have him under. Like, is he really going to be worth that money 2 or 3 years down the line? I think we'll have to see on that, but I still think he's a solid wide receiver too with really good hands. I think that he still has the potential to be a good yak threat, but we'll see if once he gets a full offseason to get healthy again, what it looks like. And he's also a dog run blocker, guys. Like, the Steelers have been looking for a wide receiver too that can run block for a while. Michael Pittman Jr. brings that to the table on day one. He's definitely going to fit the culture in that way. And I definitely think the good news with this signing is that Omar didn't overpay to get his wide receiver too. I mean, when you compare this deal with the DJ Moore deal, I mean, DJ had an off year last year, and he ends up netting a 2nd round pick from the Buffalo Bills. The con artist here gets a legit wide receiver too, Michael Pittman Jr. for a 6th and 7th round pick swap, and that's absolutely nothing. And gets him on an extension at just $20 million per season, which is around pretty darn good value for a number 2 wide receiver that's a veteran. So I think Pittman's going to fit the culture perfectly. Like, he is a lunch pail kind of guy. He's doesn't have a diva bone in his body. He's going to be a great teammate, and I think that his skill set is very complimentary for DK Metcalf. With that said, I still think wide receiver is still going to be a big need for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL draft, and particularly in the early rounds. I definitely think wide receiver in round 1 is definitely still on the table. possible. And if they don't go wide receiver in round 1, I would still like them to take one in round 2. And kind of what's the missing piece to this Steelers wide receiver room now is that 3-level threat that has really a dynamic and diverse route tree that's got some juice to him, can be good after the catch, can separate down the field as well. And there's a number of receivers in this class that I would be really, really happy to bring in here if they were able to get them early on in the NFL draft this year. Guys like Mekhi Lemon, if you trade up for him, I think Lemon as a slot specialist in this Steelers offense would be really good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, another USC guy. You could add a couple USC guys here this season. And Jordan Tyson, another guy that you could potentially trade up for. He reminds me actually a lot of CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, two guys that play a lot in the slot. And I love that comp there. And Jordan Tyson, I think, could definitely be that dynamic piece the Steelers are missing here in this wide receiver room. And Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M, another guy to keep your eye on here. A lot of juice with him, like a lot of speed, downfield threat, all that different stuff. And apparently the Steelers really like him and really loved their formal meeting with him. So keep an eye on KC Concepcion. But Omar Cooper Jr. would be excellent as well. I think you can make an argument Omar Cooper Jr. is the most complete wide receiver in this class. He's great after the catch. He's got terrific hands. They can make tough contested catches. He runs really good routes to all 3 levels of the field. Like, he's just such a complete guy. I would love to land Omar Cooper Jr. And then if you want to go round 2, Zachariah Branch out of Georgia makes a lot of sense as well. I think he's a better route runner down the field than he gets credit for. He's got a lot of speed, and he's really, really good after the catch. So I think these 5 guys should be maybe the top wide receiver targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL draft this season. Then let's turn to maybe my favorite signing of the day. In fact, it was my favorite signing of the day. Maybe not even just for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but maybe in the entire National Football League here on day 1 of NFL free agency, which is the cornerback signing of Jamel Dean. I'm giving this an A+, okay? Like, this one was one of the best deals I've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers make in a while. Now, obviously, he's going to have to prove it on the field, but you landed Jamel Dean for a 3-year, $36.75 million deal. Compare that to some of the other cornerback contracts that we saw yesterday, like Alante Taylor, who I believe is a worse cornerback than Jamel Dean, getting $20 million a season. And you're getting this guy for just $12.25 million a year for somebody that was a top 5 graded corner in football last year, somebody that's been one of the best man-to-man corners in the game for a long time, somebody that's a Super Bowl champion, somebody that's one of the best tackling corners in the league as well. Now, the thing that people say about Jamel Dean in this signing that's negative is, he's 29 years old. It's Patrick Peterson all over again. It's Darius Slay all over again. Well, Dean is younger than those guys, and he's coming off the best season of his career, actually, guys. Like, this guy's still playing at a super-duper high level, and he immediately becomes one of the best number 2 corners in the National Football League when you pair him up with Joey Porter Jr. here in the Steelers secondary. You guys can take a look at his recent career PFF grades. You guys can see he's been a top 20 graded corner in 5 of these 6 seasons. And the one season where he didn't in 2023, he was still ranked in the top 26. And just last year in 2025, he ranked in the top 5 among 112 eligible corners in PFF grading with an 80.6. And he was playing in a defense that required to play a lot of man coverage. And you look at a lot of man coverage corners, they don't usually grade as high. But you guys can see his coverage stats. I mean, he just absolutely locked down last year. 45.5% completion percentage. It's actually very close to what Joey Porter Jr. gave up last year. Only gave up 1 touchdown. He had 9 PBUs and 3 interceptions. He had a pick 6 as well. And he only allowed a quarterback rating of 46.9 when he was targeted. So this guy's a legitimate lockdown corner on the outside. And you're pairing him up with another guy that I consider a true lockdown, number 1 caliber cornerback in Joey Porter Jr., who really had his breakout season last year. And, it's definitely pointing to Patrick Graham wanting to play a lot of man coverage here in Pittsburgh this year. And with these 2 guys on the outside, I have all the confidence in the world that the Steelers are going to be able to do that. Then we get to Rico Dowdle, and I'm going to give this one an A-. Now, I said yesterday on our breaking news video, I wanted to see what he got signed for, because if he would have been signed for like $10 or more million per season, I would have been like, I probably would have just re-signed Kenneth Gainwell. But he actually signed for less than Kenneth Gainwell, as we'll talk about here in a second. But, this is somebody that's 28 years old. You're signing him to a 2-year deal, and, he's going to be 30 by the time that this deal is done. I think that's the perfect time to move on from a guy like Rico Dowdle. But this is somebody that is very, very consistent, very consistently over the last 2 years. He's been one of the best in between the tackles runners in the league, and he's always available. He doesn't really get hurt, and he's reuniting with Mike McCarthy, who knows exactly what he's capable of because he was the head coach in Dallas there in 2024 when Dowdle had his breakout season. You guys can take a look here at what he's done here over the last 3 seasons. And over the last 2 in particular, he's been pretty darn good. Over 1,000 yards. He's got a very no-nonsense brand of running the football. He's not really, if you're wanting somebody that's going to be like behind the line of scrimmage looking for lanes, like, no, Rico Dowdle's very down to business. Like, he's got good vision, and he's going to go in between the tackles. He's going to push the pile forward. And this is the type of runner that the Pittsburgh Steelers were missing last year because Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell were 2 kind of very similar skill sets, kind of more third down back type of players, and the Steelers didn't really have that guy that could go in between the tackles. Dowdle's going to be able to do that for this team, and what's really impressive about this move from GM Omar Khan is that he ended up getting Dowdle for less than what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers paid for Kenneth Gainwell. 2 years, $12.25 million is the total over this 2-year stretch for the Steelers to get a really good in-between the tackles runner, a back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher, and Kenneth Gainwell, who's like an RB2 third down back, got $7 million a season. So I really love this deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers, guys, and I'm really liking our new running back duo, like on early downs and short yardage situations when you need that kind of in-between the tackles runner. You've got Rico Dowdle, but I also think Jaylen Warren is going to get a very heavy workload in this offense in passing situations, 2-minute drills, second and long, second and medium, third and long and medium. We're going to see Jaylen Warren get probably half the snaps as well. I expect this to be a pretty close to a 50-50 split. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here, and I just want to be abundantly clear that Jaylen Warren, I believe, is still Pittsburgh's best running back, like in terms of everything that he brings to the table, the efficiency, the pass catching, the pass blocking, the big playability. Like, if I had to pick between Rico Dowdle or Jaylen Warren, I'm picking Jaylen Warren. But the fact that you're adding a different flavor of running back to this room, or you've got an early down rusher that you trust now, instead of maybe banking on Caleb Johnson to fill that role next season, I think is a good move from the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially at the price tag they got Dowdle for. And right now, because Dowdle and Warren are probably going to be like a true 1-2 punch here in Pittsburgh, I would keep an eye on a Caleb Johnson trade. This is not a very good running back draft class, and the running back talent in the NFL free agency is starting to wane as well. So if there's teams out there that liked Caleb Johnson coming out of Iowa last year, and it costs like a 5th, maybe even a 6th round pick to get Caleb Johnson into their room, I think that's something that could happen. I don't think Caleb Johnson is a completely worthless trade entity on the trade market this year. So if the Steelers want to just keep him on as a running back 3 that can come in if somebody gets injured between Dowdle and Warren, I could see them doing that. But if they want to let him go for a mid-round draft pick, I could, or a mid-day 3 draft pick, I should say, I think that's also possible as well. So to kind of wrap everything into a bow here, after every single move that the Steelers made on day 1, I'm going to give them an A-. A very, very good day for GM Omar Khan. I think that they did a lot of good stuff, and you can make an argument after just one day in NFL free agency this year, it's already Omar Khan's best free agency as the GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, we're just getting started. There's still some holes that the Pittsburgh Steelers need to fill. We'll talk about those here in just a second. But it's your turn. Let me know down there in the comment section. Grade Omar Khan's performance on day 1 of NFL free agency. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F down there in the comment section to let me know what you guys think. Now, I do want to say farewell here to a couple of starters that we are saying goodbye to here and are going to different places. Isaac Seumalo, our left guard over the last several seasons, is heading to the Arizona Cardinals. Best of luck to him. Kenneth Gainwell, of course, we talked about him going to the Buccaneers. Best of luck to KG. And then James Pierre, who, the Steelers said that they might think about bringing back. He ends up going to the Minnesota Vikings and joining forces again with Gerald Alexander, who is now the secondaries coach for Brian Flores there with the Vikings. I like that fit between Pierre and Minnesota. So best of luck to those guys, and thank you guys for your service, my friends. All right, now let's get into some remaining team needs for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Definitely still need quarterback. We'll talk about that here in a second. Left guard, they still need a wide receiver 3. They need a nose tackle, in my opinion. They still need a punter, and Maybe safety, maybe offensive tackle, maybe inside linebacker, depending on how they view those positions right now. But it does sound like the Pittsburgh Steelers feel pretty confident that Aaron Rodgers is going to return for another season here in Pittsburgh. There's a number of people, Steelers insiders that work in Pittsburgh, that have been saying, "Oh, the Steelers feel pretty darn confident that Rodgers will be returning. They're just waiting for final confirmation." And then Adam Schefter gave us the latest update on the quarterback situation here, and he had some very interesting things to say. He said, "I think the Steelers want Rodgers to return. They've been open about them wanting him to return. Everybody on the team, the players, has wanted him back. The fact of the matter is the decision has to come from Rodgers. Let's just for a moment operate in a universe in which Rodgers decides he doesn't want to come back. I think they're hopeful and optimistic that he will come back, but if he doesn't, I think that where they go from there, people won't love this, but I think they believe they have a quarterback prospect in Will Howard. Now, it's hard to bank your entire season on a quarterback we haven't seen play in the regular season, but they believe that they have something in Will Howard, and they believe Mike McCarthy's strength is developing good, young, smart quarterbacks. I'm telling you what they think. It doesn't mean they wouldn't add another quarterback, but they're hoping Rodgers comes back, and if he doesn't, they would then be prepared to have Will Howard and Mason Rudolph on the roster. They obviously would have to add somebody else at quarterback as well, but it's the reason I think they don't feel rushed or compelled to go out and add anybody at quarterback right now. So certainly there's a lot of things that could happen. I still think Aaron Rodgers is probably going to be the answer. I don't know when he's going to make his decision final. Honestly, it might be after Kyler Murray officially goes to the Minnesota Vikings. Like, that might be when we get the word from Aaron Rodgers that he will be returning. But Kyler Murray is also an option. Let's say Rodgers goes to Minnesota and that bombshell drops today. Kyler Murray immediately becomes a big-time option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. At the vet minimum, you could trade your second-round pick this year for Mac Jones if you want to, if you really feel compelled to do that. You could trade a late-round pick for Derek Carr. You could bring in Geno Smith on the vet minimum and have him compete with Will Howard. Same thing goes for guys like Kirk Cousins or Joe Flacco. Or if you want to bring in a younger option that has some ties to Mike McCarthy, Anthony Richardson doesn't have ties to McCarthy, but he does have ties to Michael Pittman Jr., and he's still young, so has a lot of upside. Trey Lance, somebody that's still only 25 years old, has still great arm talent, looked pretty good in the preseason for the Chargers last year, and played for Mike McCarthy in 2024 in Dallas. And then Spencer Rattler. I wouldn't love Rattler. I'd only give up like a 7th-round pick for him or something like that. But he's worked with Doug Nussmeier and Kubiak and Kellen Moore and a lot of people that are connected to Mike McCarthy there in New Orleans. Who knows? He could be available for the Steelers to go get. But at this point, guys, I do expect Aaron Rodgers to probably be the starting quarterback for the Steelers this season. But now we can get to some day 2 targets in general here to keep your eye on that are still available that I think make sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, we're still waiting for him to potentially make a decision. That could be coming today. But I would also love to add Elgton Jenkins, the left guard from the Green Bay Packers. He played center last year, but his 2 Pro Bowl seasons came when he was playing left guard. That's exactly the position the Steelers are looking for right now. He's got a connection with Rodgers, played with Rodgers in Green Bay. That one just makes a lot of sense to me. But if you miss out on Jenkins, you could get Joel Bitonio, Kevin Zeitler, or Brock Hoffman. Those guys should be very affordable on the open market. If you want to go get another receiver to kind of fill out that wide receiver 3 role up until we draft somebody in the early rounds of the NFL draft, Darnell Mooney for the right price tag, I would absolutely be stoked for. At this point, I think it makes sense to bring back Calvin Austin III. At the very least, he's your wide receiver 4 and your punt returner. I think he's very good. I think he'd be very good at both of those roles. Jalen Tolbert is somebody that has a connection to Mike McCarthy, and we've seen him get linked to the Steelers multiple times. Brandon Cooks is also in that category. Somebody else to think about, too, is Hollywood Brown. Had kind of an off year last year in Kansas City, maybe slowing down a little bit as he ages, and he's had some injuries, but he is somebody that still has a little bit of juice, can separate vertically down the field. Wouldn't be a terrible option as a wide receiver 3 or 4 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then on defense, some guys to keep your eye on. Nate Hobbs was released by the Green Bay Packers today. Hobbs played his best football in Patrick Graham's defense in Las Vegas during the 2023 and 2024 seasons, and he's a good nickel. So keep an eye on that. If the Steelers want to play Jalen Ramsey at safety, having Hobbs in this defense as a nickel corner could make sense for this team. If you want to go big nickel as well, C.J. Gardner-Johnson would make a lot of sense. Kevin Byard, Donovan Wilson, and Nick Cross would be the safeties I would keep my eye on if the Steelers plan on using Jalen Ramsey as the big nickel this season. Couple of defensive tackles to keep your eye on. Dalvin Tomlinson, who has a connection to Patrick Graham when he used to play for the New York Giants. Deshaun Hand and then Sebastian Joseph-Day are a couple of solid run-stuffing defensive tackle options for the Steelers. But my top 5 targets to keep an eye on today, for me, guys, Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, then you got Elton Jenkins. I'm really hoping the Steelers can land him. That would completely complete the Steelers' offensive line heading into next season, in my opinion. If you can land Darnell Mooney for a good price tag, less than $8 million, I would be in on that. Good wide receiver 3 type that can separate to all 3 levels of the field. Good route runner. Has some injury concerns, which should drive down his price tag. That would be a great get for the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion. Dalvin Tomlinson with his connections to Patrick Graham. I know he's getting older, but he's still a good run-stuffing nose tackle. And then Jamal Adams, somebody to keep your eye on here. He played kind of a hybrid linebacker, kind of big nickel role for Patrick Graham in Vegas last year, and he really played the best that he's played in years. He's past the age of 30, but this is something that he could do, and he thrived in Patrick Graham's defense, and you might be even able to get him at the vet minimum. So if they trade Patrick Queen today, you could bring in Jamal Adams as an option. Keep your eye on him as free agency continues. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Who's your number 1 free agency target that's still on the board for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Let me know your thoughts down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. Of course, as breaking news comes out throughout the day, we will have updates for you guys. And of course, Kapanzi and I are planning on going live at 3 p.m. Eastern time today. We'll be live for somewhere between 3 and 4 hours, breaking down all the biggest moves in NFL free agency today with the Steelers. Also, we'll be joined by our friends at the Commanders Report as well, just so you guys know. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.